Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
What is Islam? Is it Jewish? Or is it made by Muhammad? What are the origins? What's the background of the Quran? Was it written by a man in the Hijaz in Arabia? Or was it written by Jews in Babylon? What is the Sunnah? Is it the stories of a real man? Or are they heavily influenced by Jewish understanding? Is the Quran from Allah or from the rabbis? In this series, we're going to tackle what is the true origins of Islam. Welcome to the Talmudic Dilemma. Continuing on the Talmudic dilemma, and being on Noah. So the last couple of videos we went over the floods and then boiling over. I'm going to focus in on specifically the son of Noah that drowned. We might talk a little bit about the wife of Noah that drowned, but we're mostly focusing on the son of Noah in this video, the fourth son. In Surah 11, 42 through 49, it says, "And it sailed with him amid waves like mountains, and Noah called out to his son, and he was standing aloof. 'O my son, come ride with us, and do not be with the unbelievers.' He said, 'I will go to some mountain that will save me from the water.' He said, 'Today there are none who will be saved from the commandment of Allah except him on whom he had mercy.' And the wave came in between them. So he was among the drowned. And it was said, 'O earth, swallow your water, and O sky, be cleared of clouds.' And the water was made to subside, and the commandment was fulfilled, and it came to rest upon all Judi, and it was said, a far removal from wrongdoing people. And Noah called out to his Lord and said, 'My Lord, indeed my son is of my family. Surely your promise is the truth, and you are most just of the judges.' He said, 'O Noah, indeed he is not of your family. Indeed he is of the evil conduct. So do not ask me about what you have no knowledge of. I warn you so that you will not be among the ignorant.' He said, 'My Lord, indeed in you do I seek refuge, that I would ask you about something I have no knowledge of. Unless you forgive me and have mercy on me, I will be among the lost.' It was said, 'O Noah, go down with peace from us, blessings upon you, and some nations from those with you, nations to whom we will give enjoyment for a long while, and then a painful doom for us will overtake them. This is among the news of the unseen, which we inspire within you. You yourself did not know it, nor did you people before this. Then have patience, indeed, the enduring. The ending is for those who fear Allah.'" I apologize for reading so much of the Quran in one go. But we have the Quran here saying that the son of Noah specifically drowned, that he was not going to be saved, and then Noah intercedes for his son, saying, "Hey, he's my son. Can you save him? Can you resurrect him? Can you give him back to me?" And Allah says, "The unbelieving are not family members to you." So Allah explicitly identifies those who do not believe in the Prophet as those who are not part of the Ummah, not part of the believers, not part of those who will be saved. So do not worry about the members of your family who are not going to be saved because they are kafir. Now, obviously, this is Muhammad using this as a cult tactic to control his people, but is there any sense of a fourth son of Noah in the rabbinic or Jewish tradition, rabbinic or Christian tradition, or is this a Mohammedan invention? Now, I will say that, at the outset, the fourth son definitely appears both in Christian and in Jewish traditions, but we do not get that he drowned other than maybe one passage within the Bible. So that's the too long didn't watch of this video, is this appears to be somewhat a Islamic invention, not strictly tied to original ideas, but it's like a culmination of 13 different ideas, all coalesced into Surah 11. So in this, we get this weird kind of ending. This is obviously different from the biblical accounts. And whenever we look at the biblical account, it's pretty stark how different this is. So in the Islamic account, we have a son that drowned, a fourth son of Noah. And we also get that there were 72 other people who were saved on the ark. So it wasn't just Noah, his sons, and their wives. It was explicitly 80 people who were saved in the flood. So we contrast that with Genesis 7, 6 through 16. Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters came on the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wives and his sons entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Pairs of clean and unclean animals, of birds and all creatures that move along the ground, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark, as God had commanded Noah, and after the 7 days the floodwaters came on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 7th day of the second month, on that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of heavens were opened, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On that very day Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild animal according to its kind, all livestock according to its kind, every creature that moves on the ground according to its kind, every bird. And the Lord shut them in. So we get that in the Bible, he doesn't have a 4th son that's unrighteous who drowns. He only has the 8 people who are saved. This is echoed in the New Testament and in other places in the Old Testament, that there's only 8 people who enter into the ark. So from an Islamic perspective, the Quran corrects or fixes the broken parts of the Bible, the corrupted parts of the Bible. But you have to ask yourself, if the Bible is so different here, why? You have to say, oh, well, it's Jewish corruption, but why would the Jews corrupt this passage? In the biblical accounts, the family of Noah is more righteous in this setting. So why would the Jews corrupt this by removing an unrepentant son who died in the flood and an extra wife of Noah who died in the flood? Because obviously monogamy is more righteous than polygamy from a biblical perspective. So why is it that the Jews are removing both an extra wife who died and an extra son who died due to unbelief? Why is the family of Noah less righteous in the Islamic worldview if it's supposed to be the truth and the prophets in their immediate family are supposed to be more holy? Why is the biblical narrative more righteous for Noah, even though it's supposed to be a corruption, than the Islamic version? That doesn't seem to work. That doesn't seem to make sense. The biblical account is better. So why does it contradict? Let's look into that. Ibn Kathir on Surah 11:42 says, "In your family, except him against whom the word has already gone forth." This means load your family upon the ship. This is referring to the members of the household and his relatives, except him against whom the word has already gone forth, for they did not believe in Allah. Among them was the son of Noah, Yam, who went in hermitage and went on top of a mountain. Among them was the wife of Noah, who was a disbeliever in Allah and his messenger, and none believed with him except a few. This means only a very small number believed, even after the long period of the time in which Noah was among them, 950 years. It was reported from Ibn Abbas that he said they were 80 people, including their women. So this is both Noah doing dawah for 950 years, so he's older than 950, which is again off of the Bible, and that there were 80 people on the ship, and that Noah's son, Yam, was part of the ones who drowned, including a wife of Noah, which is tied later on in, I believe, Surah 66, with the unbelieving wife of Lot, which we'll get to. But Tafsir al-Jalalain on Surah 11:42 also says, "And it sailed with him in mid waves like mountains in terms of their height and size, and Noah called out to his son Canaan, who was standing away from the ship, 'Oh, my son, embark with us and do not be with disbelievers.'" So now the two Jalals are saying, oh, well, it is actually Canaan, this is the first Jalal, who's saying that it's actually Canaan who is the son of Noah. So in Kathir, we have that it is Yam. In Jalalain, it's Canaan. In Al-Qurtubi, it is Noah called out to his son. It is said that he was an unbeliever and his name was Canaan. It is also said that his name is Yam. So we get in Qurtubi that he is giving both traditions. That his son's name is either Canaan or it is Yam. You know, you have to pick one. You can't have two names. But we have this tradition. So it's either Canaan, which is obviously from the Bible, the grandson of Noah, or Yam, which is not from the Bible, but is from rabbinic tradition and Christian tradition. So whenever we look through a bunch of sources now from the Christian rabbinic side, I do want to point out that this is not for evidence that the son is drowning, but just evidence that the fourth son idea comes from the Jews and Christians. In Purged Rabbi Eliezer, it becomes extremely explicit. Obviously, this could be post-Islam because much of the content is post-Islam. Some is pre-Islam, but it's hard to differentiate what is pre-Islam versus post-Islam. So take this little bit with a grain of salt, but the rest of it is pre-Islam. So Purged Rabbi Eliezer 23:12-13 says, "Noah found a vine, he found grapes on it and all that stuff, and he drank from it, became drunk, and revealed himself in his tent. Canaan came in, saw his father's nakedness, tied a string to his penis, and castrated him. Then he went out to tell his brothers. Ham came in, saw his father's nakedness, and neglecting the commandment to honor one's father, reported to his two brothers as though he were in the market and laughing at his father. His brothers rebuked him. They took a cover, walking backwards, covering their father's nakedness. Noah arose from his stupor, discovering what his youngest son had done to him, and cursed him, saying, "Cursed is Canaan." So explicitly here, he has 4 sons. Canaan is one of the sons. So if you have the view of the Tafsir that it's Canaan as the son, this is very, very explicit that Canaan is the 4th son. And he is cursed. He's an unbelieving son in this tradition because Canaan is the one who castrated Noah, which we'll get to whenever we go through Sanhedrin. I know I glossed over the castration bit like that. It's not important, but I'll get to it. Book of Jubilees 7:10-13 has, "And Noah awoke from his sleep and knew that all his younger son had done to him, and he cursed his son and said, Cursed be Canaan, an enslaved servant shall he be to his brethren." Now this is very explicit that Canaan is the son of Noah, but in just a couple sentences later, it's kind of confusing. So it continues on and says, "And he blessed Shem and said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan be his servant." So again, it's part of his brethren. "God shall enlarge Japheth, and God shall dwell in the dwelling of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." Again, it's part of the brethren. But then the next verse says, "And Ham knew that his father had cursed his younger son, and he was displeased that he cursed his son, and he parted from his father, he and his sons with him, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan." So that verse seems to indicate Ham is the father of Canaan. So the other 3 are very explicit that Canaan is a son of Noah. Then the last one is kind of strange. Is Ham the father of Canaan, or is Noah the father of Canaan? Are they using son in a grandson sense? It's very confusing. It gets way more explicit whenever we look at Cave of Treasures, which is a Christian source. So both Book of Jubilees and Cave of Treasures is like 280. It predates Islam by a lot. Cave of Treasures, page 33, the section titled Nimrod, the fire worshipper, and Yatan, the son of Noah. It says, "In the days of Nimrod, the mighty man or giant, a fire appeared which ascended from the earth. And Nimrod went down and looked at it and worshipped it, and he established priests to minister there and to cast incense into it. From that day, the Persians began to worship fire, and they do so to this day." So that might be getting into like Shams and the fire deity and all that stuff. But this is the foundation of Nimrod worshiping fire for like the Surah, where Abraham is cast into the burn, and like the 2 surahs where Abraham's cast into the fiery furnace. And you see that with, I believe, Bereshit Rabbah. Like you see it in a bunch of places in the Testament of Abraham. So we get Nimrod here worshiping fire, and it continues on. "And Nimrod went to Yokdora of Nod, and when he arrived at the lake of Atras, he found there Yotan, the son of Noah." And a marginal note within the Syriac manuscripts of the Cave of Treasures adds, "Noah begot this Yotan after the flood, and he honored him in many things and sent him to the east to dwell there. And Nimrod went down and bathed in the lake, and he came to Yotan and did homage unto him. And Yotan said, Thou art a king, dost thou pay homage unto me? And Nimrod said to him, It is because of thee that I have come down from here. And he remained with him for 3 years. And Yotan taught Nimrod wisdom and the art of revelation or of divining. And he said unto him, Come not back again to me. So here explicitly, one of the sons of Noah is Yotan. So Yam and Yotan likely coming from the same source. So some of the Muslim exegesis was from the Christian or Syriac source, and then some of it is from the Rabbinic source, as we'll look at with the Talmud and Bereshit Rabbah. And when Nimrod went up from the east and began to practice the art of divining, very many men marveled at him. And when Ishtar, the priest who ministered to the fire that ascended from the earth, saw that Nimrod was practicing these exalted courses, he entreated the devil who appeared in connection with the fire to teach him the wisdom of Nimrod. And as the devils were in the habit of destroying those who came nigh unto them by sin, the devil said unto the priest, Man cannot be a priest and a magan, a magician, until he hath known carnally his mother and his daughter and his sister. And Ishtar, the priests did this, and from that time the priest and the magicians and the Persians take their mothers and their sisters and their daughters to bed. And this Ishtar, the magician, was the first to begin the study of the signs of the zodiac and omens concerning luck and fate and happenings and motions of the eyes and eyelids, as well as all the other arts of the learning of the Chaldees. Now all the learning in this is the error of the devils, and those who practice it shall receive together with the devils the doom of the judgment. And because this art of divination, which was employed by Nimrod, was taught to him by Yotan, none of the orthodox doctors have suppressed it. Nay, they even practice it. Now the Persians call it revelation, gleina, and the Romans astronomy. And that knowledge which the magicians have via astrology is sorcery and teaching of the devils. There are some who say that it doth indeed indeed teach concerning luck and happenings in the future and fate, but these are in error. So you can do astrology to learn about the future, but this is not actually true. So we get explicitly both that the Syriacs were like the Persians have sex with their mothers and daughters, which is pretty messed up. It's like Zoroastrian, the empires are warring, they have a very negative view of them. This is not talking about like modern day Iranians. The Iranians today are based and don't have incest. So we get Nimrod being explicitly taught by the son of Noah divination, and he's worshiping the fire and all this other stuff, and he's like the student of Yatan. We have in other sources that Yatan is the child of Nimrod, so it goes back and forth with who is actually Yatan. But very clearly, this is a fourth son of Noah that has the same name, or the same root name, as the son of Noah in the Tafsir, in multiple Tafsir. So in Sanhedrin 70a, 18 through 20, we have, having cited the passage discussing Noah, the Gemara enters into a discussion about what was actually done to him by his younger son, Ham. So this gets into the context of, okay, why is Canaan being conflated with this unbelieving son inside of the Quran? They single out Canaan specifically as this unbelieving son. Yotan, it kind of makes sense because he's teaching like divination, sorcery, it's evil. Like Yatan being evil, I could get that because he's obviously teaching something evil to Nimrod, one of the adversaries of Abraham. So he's teaching something evil to an evil person. So I could get how you could get that being the unbelieving son. Now how he dies in the flood when he's born after the flood, that's its own debate, its own question, which I'll get to at the end of the video. But here we have what was actually done to him by his younger son, Ham. Rav and Shmuel disagreed. One says that Ham castrated Noah, and one says that Ham sodomized him, which is actually my view, that Ham actually had intercourse with Noah while he was drunk. The Gemara explains the one who says that Ham castrated Noah and adjudicates the following proof. Since he injured Noah with respect to the possibility of conceiving a fourth son, which Noah wanted but could no longer have, therefore Noah cursed him by means of Ham's fourth son. So this is the view of him being castrated. If he was castrated, then he couldn't have a fourth kid, and he wanted to have a fourth kid, which we'll look at in Midrash Rabbah. But he wanted to have a fourth kid. Ham didn't want him to have a fourth kid, so he castrated him. Why is Canaan cursed? Because he's the fourth son of Ham. So Noah curses the fourth son for the lack of his fourth son is the idea. And the one who says that Ham sodomized Noah learned this from a verbal analogy between the words, and he saw, here it is written, and Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and there it is written, and Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, and took her, and lay with her, and afflicted her. This indicates that the term saw alludes to sexual intercourse. This is not the only time that seeing or knowing the nakedness of something alludes to sexual intercourse in the Old Testament. We get that in a variety of places. It's actually where I would get the idea that he had intercourse with him, especially because he wakes up and he knows instantly what had happened to him. Maybe like he was sore in his butthole, and that just is how he knew that he was sodomized. The Gemara asks, granted, according to the one who says that Ham castrated Noah, it is due to that reason that Noah cursed Ham by means of Ham's fourth son. But according to the one who says that Ham sodomized him, what is the difference about his fourth son? He should have cursed Ham directly. The Gemara answers, the sages hold that both this offense and that offense were committed. They all agree that Ham castrated Noah, and some say that Ham also sodomized him. And it says that all agree, but it's not actually the case. But they're like, oh, all the sages hold that he was both castrated and sodomized. Pretty brutal, pretty crazy. He like tied a string around his, pulled it, or tied a string around his, pulled it. So he snipped it. And in Midrash Rabbah 36, 4 through 7, it becomes a little bit more explicit with this idea. Rav Huna said in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, son of Rabbi Yossi Galgaliel, when Noah emerged from the ark, a lion struck him and mutilated him. When he came to engage in relations, his seed scattered and he was humiliated. So we get that he wanted to have intercourse, but whenever he got off the ark, one of the lions, for whatever reason, swiped at his junk, and either it caused his to have a hole and the semen seeped through the or his gained a hole and he ejaculated not into his wife, but outside of her, and that caused him great humiliation. Granted, how and why would you have intercourse with a hole in your junk is beyond me, because I can't imagine how painful that would be, especially because whenever you get a boner and you have an injury there, it stretches and it rips. Ow! Anyway, that's kind of the setup. The setup of Midrash Rabbah is that he wanted to have a fourth son, and yet he couldn't because his seed was messed up. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw, this is later on in the text, he said to them and spoke persuasively to them, he said to them, Adam, the first man, had only 2 sons, and one of them arose and killed the other. This one, Noah, has 3 sons, and he seeks to make a fourth. So because of that, he goes and he castrates him. it's very dumb. So not only does Adam have more than 2 sons, he also has Seth, and those are the 3 named sons, but he also likely had many other children beyond that. So it's a dumb apologetic for why he's castrated him, but that's the apologetic, is that he has 3 sons, he has more than Adam already, and he seeks to make a 4th. How dare he? Anyone before this only ever had 2 sons, which is also not true. So he castrates him because of that, and then he curses him. The interesting thing here is he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a slave of slaves." He said to his brothers, "Ham committed the sin and Canaan was cursed." This is astonishing. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nehemiah, Rabbi Yehuda said, "Because it is written, God blessed Noah and his sons, and a curse cannot be in place where there is a blessing. That is why he said, cursed is Canaan." Rabbi Nehemiah says, "Canaan saw and told Ham, therefore one ascribes the curse to the corrupt one." So you have 2 different views. Canaan was the one who initiated the sin, which is why he's cursed. Or you can't curse the blessed of the Lord, therefore he cursed Canaan. Maybe prophetically, because he saw that the Canaanites would be enemies of the Israelites. Who knows why specifically he cursed Canaan, but that's actually my view, that the sons of Noah were blessed by God going into the ark. You cannot curse one of the anointed, one of the Meshiachs of Yahweh, therefore he blessed one of the non-anointed, and he also blessed Ham's son so that his progeny would also be cursed. So it wasn't just his curse, it was such a heavy curse based on what he did to him, which was likely sodomy, that he blessed, or he cursed not just Ham, but also his progeny forever, which we see in the Bible. Rabbi Berkeam said, "Noah endured much suffering in the ark due to the fact he did not have a young son to attend to him. He said, 'When I emerge, I will produce a young son for myself to attend for me.' After Ham performed that act to Noah, he prevented me from having a young son to attend to me. Therefore that man, your young son, Canaan, will be a slave to his brothers, who are servants to me." Rav Huna said in the name of Rav Yossi, "You prevented me from performing an act that is done in the darkness. Therefore that man, Canaan, will be ugly and darkened." So because he couldn't get it on with his wife in the dark, Canaan will now become black-skinned. Rabbi Huna said in the name of Rabbi Yosef, he said to him, "You prevented me from producing a 4th son, therefore I'm cursing your 4th son." Rabbi Hina bar Abba said, "Both Ham and the dog engaged in sexual relations in the ark. That is why Ham emerged darkened and the dog is exposed when mating." So they have intercourse in the light, because that's apparently shameful. Rabbi Levi said, "This is analogous to one who imprinted his own coinage with his image inside the king's tent. The king said, 'I declare that his face shall be blackened and his image defaced.' So Ham and the dog engaged in sexual relations in the ark. That is why Ham emerged darkened and the dog is exposed when mating." So it gets into the black skin. I already made an episode on that with the blackface stuff. Wild stories already over there. But we see here that he has, there's multiple positions. Either Canaan is not the son of Noah and he is part of the curse because of either Ham is blessed and therefore he can't be cursed, or Canaan was involved somehow in the process. Either he participated in the castration and then Ham mocked him, which is actually a little bit more of the Tafsir perspective, or he was cursed. There's so many different views on this. There's not one set view, which we get in the Quran. Hey, could Muhammad just be mixing all this stuff? Could he just be cooking in his crock pot and, getting all this kind of mixed together? Probably. Maybe. So let's go through that. Speyer, in his notes on this, he says that it could probably be a combination of a variety of things. Bereshit Rabbah 22:12 has, "Rabbi Levi said in the name of Rabbi Shimon bar Lakish, his sentence was pending until the flood came and washed him away, as it is stated." So this talks about Cain. "He obliterated all existence on the face of the earth, just as it says Cain rose." So that's Hakum versus Vayakim. We have there that this Rabbi Levi, takes that Cain died in the flood because no one could kill Cain. Later on, in the earlier sections of Bereshit Rabbah, it talks about how Cain can't die to human hands. Therefore, God killed him in the flood. So he lived immortally up until that point. So he lived way past Seth and all the other sons of Adam and all that other stuff. So here we have Cain dying in the flood. And Cain is the unbelieving son of Adam. So maybe the idea of this unbelieving son, this idea of this vileness to the son, that he rejects God and he does evil, that being incorporated with a drowned son kind of seems relevant to this. Gabriel Said Reynolds, in his paper, Noah's Lost Son in the Quran, he posits that most of this influence is probably coming from a interpretation or reinterpretation of Ezekiel 14:13-20, which says, "Son of man, if a country sins against me by being unfaithful, and I stretch out my hand against it to cut it off its food supply and send famine upon it, and kill its people and their animals, even if these 3 men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, were in it, they could save only themselves by their righteousness, declares the sovereign Lord." So the idea is, even if Noah is there, they could not be saved from my wrath. Or if I send wild beasts through the country and they leave it childless and it becomes desolate so that no one can pass through it because of the beast, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, even if these 3 men were in it, they could not save their own sons or daughters. They alone would be saved, but the land would be desolate. So the idea of Noah having a son that could not be saved is explicitly in the Bible, although it's theoretical. Or if I bring a sword against that country and say, let the sword pass throughout the land and I kill its people and their animals, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, even if these 3 men were in it, they could not save their own sons or daughters, they alone would be saved. Or if I send a plague into that land and pour out my wrath on it through bloodshed, killing its people and their animals, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, even if Noah, Daniel, or Job were in it, they could save neither their son nor their daughter, they would save only themselves by their righteousness. A parallel to this transformation from theory into reality, this is Gabriel summarizing this text. He says, a parallel to this transformation from theory into reality can be found in the passage on David's conversation with 2 litigants in the Quran in Surah 38, 21 through 26. 2 Samuel 12, 1 through 13 has the prophet Nathan tell David a parable about 2 men, one of whom has stolen a land from the other in order that he might appreciate the sin he committed by taking Bathsheba from Uriah. In the Quran, these 2 men are no longer a theory. Instead, they enter into the presence of David literally, and David judges between them. Something similar has taken place with the son of Noah mentioned in Ezekiel 14. The Quran's author transforms this theoretical son who in theory would die for his sin into a real character who really dies for his sin. The subsequent dialogue between Noah and God reveals the reason for this transformation. The account of Noah's lost son is meant to illustrate one of the Quran's central arguments that all unbelievers, all kafir, even those in one's own family, are to be left behind. So this ultimately boils down to a cultic control over the family. If you're not believing in Muhammad, you are a kafir and you are to kill your own family and leave them behind. That is kind of part of his cult. So we get in this whole passage, this whole understanding of the Quran has this make-believe son. It's not in the Bible. It's contradictory to the Bible. And actually the Bible has a more righteous take on it than the Quran, which how was that corrupted? But we get here that there are all of these rabbinic sources and Christian sources that talk about the sin of Canaan involved with castrating Noah, involved with hurting Noah. He has an unbelieving son called Canaan, or there's this unbelieving son of Noah called Yatan. So in the Tafsir, it's Yam and Canaan. So the only names that are given in the Tafsir that I am aware of are the names given by the Jews and Christians in later Apocrypha. Why? How? So you have that. You also have that the son is explicitly cursed by God. So we have this cursing of the son. You have in Ezekiel that there's this death of this son. And you have in Midrash and Talmudic that there's this death of Cain, the cursed son of Adam. So you have all of these cursed son motifs being passed around from sources that we know Muhammad copies from for other doctrines, for other ideas. So these are all the texts I've read here are all things that Muhammad steals from for other things. So did he in his brain combine all of these things together to get into Canaan dying in the flood? Because specifically dying in the flood is original to the Quran. But as Gabriel Reynolds said, he might be extrapolating from Ezekiel into a dying son and then also better Shirba of a dying son in the flood. Maybe he's mixing all those ideas together and getting this view of the Quran. Granted, he's again applying a view of it that is cultic, that is controlling, that is not of the Bible. But why? How? Where did all this come from? Because it's obviously not a correction. What's it correcting? That his family's less righteous? That Noah was less righteous of a man practicing polygamy? That's nonsense. Where does this all come from? Is it from the Jews and Christians? If it is it from these sources? If it's not, why have it at all? You also get into Lot and Noah being connected with their wives being destroyed. We get that in Surah 66. You also get that in Jesus, and you also get that in Peter. In Luke and in 2 Peter, it talks about how he compares the generation of Noah and the generation of Lot. So you might be taking some of the biblical accounts, the biblical ideas, and correlating, well, Lot had his wife die, therefore Noah needs a wife who died because their events are the same. There's divine punishment being rained down on a wicked generation. You also have Lot's sons, his sons-in-laws, dying, and you have Noah's son dying in this catastrophe. So Muhammad might be mixing all these things together to get this idea and then applying a cultic overtone to it to control his people and to justify the murdering of their families. So, thoughts, ideas, let me know down in the comments. Subscribe if you've made it this far. You're obviously willing to watch 35 minutes of this, but interesting idea. Next video is going to be on one of the other prophets. We've been doing all the prophets here coming up. Maybe Abraham is next. So may the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you always. Goodbye.